So, to begin, what is psychophysical harmony? That is the central datum that these authors will argue theism is a better explanation for. What's psychophysical harmony, Graham?
Okay, so I'll give one example, and that will stand in because we probably won't need more than the one example. So suppose that you put your hand on a hot plate when it's hot. There are two things that happen. One thing is that you withdraw your hand, and the other thing is that you experience an intense pain. We'll suppose that it's a very hot plate, and uh, there are views in philosophy of mind about the connection between the experiencing of the pain and the whatever's going on in your brain that makes you withdraw your hand, right? The kind of physical stuff that goes from what's happening in your brain to your withdrawing the hand. Now, one question that you can think about here is just about the connection between the pain and the state itself, whether we've got one thing here or two, and if there are two things, how exactly the two things are related. That's not the topic for psychophysical harmony. Rather, what the psychophysical harmony concerns is the idea that there's a certain kind of harmony between your feeling the pain and your withdrawing your hand, namely that your feeling the pain rationalizes or in some other way underwrites your removing your hand from the hot plate. So there's a harmony between the experience and the behavior of a certain kind, a kind of normative harmony. There are some other cases of harmony that Carter and Kramer also discuss, but we only need the one example in order to proceed with the discussion.
Right. So it's difficult for me initially, it was difficult to get my head around this case because it's a fairly abstract kind of harmony or fact about experience that I think we just take for granted. I mean, most people, when they hear that example of why is it that I feel pain when I put my hand on a hot stove or an open flame,
Yeah.
they think that that fact cries out for any kind of special explanation. So this idea of there being a harmony between the pain I feel and the, I don't know, avoidance behavior, pulling my hand
Yeah.
back and the brain state that causes it. How else could it have gone? So a question about harmony suggests that there could have been a different kind of link. Is that right? I mean, is that what Crummett and God, I keep forgetting the other guy's name.
Carter.
Okay, hold
Yeah.
on.
So that is what they think. So there are two bits here. It could have been that you could have had kind of any other kind of experience could have been the one that was connected with the behavior, right? So if you think about it kind of purely a priori, there's all these different experiences you could have, and any of them could be attached to the piece of behavior. And then there would be a kind of normative mismatch. If you really got great pleasure and experienced great pleasure when you put your hand on the hot plate, the pleasure that you were experiencing would drive you to leave the hand there at the same time as the avoidance behavior was being kind of propelled by the state in your brain. There'd be this very unfortunate kind of mismatch between your experience and your brain states. And what Carter and Crummett think is that there's, in some sense, it's possible for there to be this mismatch, and that there's some work that God can do to ensure that we don't have those kinds of mismatches by promulgating psychophysical laws that ensure that there's always a normative match. And so from their perspective, what you said earlier, it's not, unless you think about it from the right perspective, you don't even notice that there might be room for there to be
Yes.
divine promulgation of psychophysical laws that ensure this harmony, which is ever present, right?
Right. It's ubiquitous. And so
Yeah.
it's to their credit that they were able to step back and see this very general fact about experience as possibly the basis of a theistic argument. So I think to clarify further, this is an example of hedonistic harmony concerning pleasure and pain. And I think it's a very clear example, or the clearest of the examples they give, that our avoidance behavior is matched with pain in such a way that feeling pain makes sense in that context. It makes sense of the behavior. That's kind of what this normative element means. I mean, that's another philosophical term of art that might be difficult to understand without sufficient background knowledge. But just the idea that the felt quality justifies the behavior. So
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a harmony of those elements.
Yeah, that's right.
Whereas if you felt pleasure when you put your hand on a hot stove, it just wouldn't make sense that that would be paired with pulling your hand back rapidly and avoiding it. So you mentioned psychophysical laws. Broadly, obviously, we're talking about psychophysical harmony. What's a psychophysical law?
So this will make this will make sense from certain metaphysical perspectives and not from others, right? So um, there's got to be if so it's easiest to explain, and this is where the paper starts. If you think about dualism, so you think that there's and in particular a kind of interactive dualism. So we have a body, and then in some other realm somewhere there's a mind which is non-physical, and the experiential states are in the mind, and then we have the physical body, and there's various behavior, and the mind somehow or other connects to the brain in some way that it makes the interface between the two. And now there's a question about the correlation between the states in the mind and the states in the brain, exactly how they get paired up with one another. And so that's the question about psychophysical laws, that you might have laws that connect certain kinds of mental states with certain kinds of brain states and the harmony stuff piggybacks on that idea, I think.
Okay. So does sensory experience provide an illustration of psychophysical laws, or a different kind of link where, upon being presented with a red ball, I have a mental experience of a red ball. And so you have a psychophysical law that might state when there actually is this red ball in front of you at a certain distance, you will have this mental experience. Is that
Right. And again, there'll be a kind of harmony. It's a different kind of harmony. It won't be the
right?
normative harmony, but you'll have a disposition to say there's a red ball in front of you, which is that's sort of on the physical side.
Yeah.
And you'll have a presentation as of a red ball, and there'll be a harmony between the two most of the time. I mean, it won't be perhaps quite as uniform as the pain and the hot plate, but it'll be
Right.
pretty. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Because I think that's what they call epistemic harmony. That, again, it's an instance of normative harmony because the experiences we have justify our subsequent declarations of belief. And so if I perceive a red ball and I say there is a red ball, it's my experience of seeing the red ball that makes sense of, that justifies why I later went to declare that there is a red ball. But it's possible that I saw a blue triangle, and that just happens to be correlated with saying there is a red ball. And so there would be this mismatch between what I take to be justifying my declarations of belief and what I actually see.
Yeah, that's the idea. Yeah.
Okay.